pretty well situated. So every month, we're gonna be as on a oops. As was just mentioned, we're going to have someone every month that is, we'll have a table that they can bring in their goods or possibly services to offer to the group, and just to let us know what they have for sale and that it's available. So that's something new that we're doing every month. So this month it's Laura Cascade. So, and by the way, she's in Ciudad Colon, and she said she explained that she provides delivery service also in that area if you're interested. So after the lunch today, did I introduce myself? Sorry. I was just excited. There's like a really nice energy in here today. I'm Jackie Monticello. I'm from New York originally. I've been in Costa Rica for 31 years now. And I'm part of the leadership team. So today I'm one of the people that's been in charge of this particular meeting. And I've been fortunate enough to get to know Enaid a little bit better since she's become since she's become a member a couple of years ago now, I guess, right? One year, 2 years ago. So again, thank you for coming. After the meeting, we're gonna probably finish around noon, maybe a little bit before that. We are gonna have anybody that's interested can have lunch downstairs. There should be a menu on all your tables. At some point, probably about halfway through, we'll pass around a little sheet so you can jot down what you'd like to order, and then if you'd like to stay for lunch, and kind of get the ball rolling on that. So the kitchen is ready when we go downstairs. Okay, so Enaid, we have the pleasure of hearing from Enaid Savage today. She's going to be talking to us about investing, money saving strategies, and specific ways to invest without fear. She's originally from Chicago, from Illinois. She lived in a few different places in the United States, moved to Mexico, and then came here in October of 2023, right? Her career journey has taken her through different leadership roles in the insurance, financial, and telecommunications industries. She also later established a consulting firm, an HR consulting firm called Savage West, providing consulting and training services for different Fortune 100 companies like DuPont, 3M, and Hewlett Packard. She was very fortunate to be able to retire at a very young age, and to me is a truly powerful testament to how smart investing can create both freedom and opportunity in our lives. Today she's here to join us to share her knowledge and to help others achieve their financial goals. So please welcome me and join in Enaid Savage.
Hello, I'm just delighted that you're all here, and I thank you for being here. I thank Jackie and Loredana for helping me to put this together with both technical support and logistical support. So thanks to everyone. I'm really excited to share with you that the investment strategies I'm going to talk about today include some things that talk about using brokerage firms. So I want to make a couple of statements about that. First of all, I'm going to be talking in terms of dollars rather than colones today, so forgive me for that. Okay. I'm also going to be talking about a particular investment firm. However, I have a disclaimer that I'm going to read to you because just like on TV, I know you can't read that tiny print. So I'm going to read to you exactly what it says. It says, and typically on television, they don't necessarily want you to know, but it says that this is informational only, and it is not offered as financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, nor am I an accountant. The information is sourced from my due diligence, my experience, and my personal insights, and it's not intended to promote any financial institution or business. Okay. So disclaimer now out of the way, okay? We're on good footing. But I do want to say this. One of the questions that was posed when we first started to talk about this presentation was whether or not you would be able to invest from Costa Rica. I do not know the investment firms, brokerage firms in Costa Rica. When I look up investments on the internet for Costa Rica, I see lots about real estate. I don't see anything about brokerage firms. Now, maybe it's just my short-sightedness because I didn't really have to find out. But what I did do was I checked with Charles Schwab. Again, I'm not promoting Schwab. I'm just telling you this is a vehicle. They're not giving me anything for mentioning them. And what they said was that, yes, they accepted accounts from people in Costa Rica. I got that answer twice from them. And then I called another brokerage firm because I thought, okay, let me get a list so that I can really say, you know, here are other firms you can talk to. And when I called the second firm, they said, no, we don't deal with people who don't live in the United States. And I thought, oh, what if my information is wrong? So I called Schwab again, and I asked to speak to their international investment department. And they said, yes, we take clients from Costa Rica. So I'm not trying to get you to go there. I just want you to know that's an option if you choose to. Okay, so say what you will about the issue of money. It's something that typically we would like more of. Is there anybody here who would like more of it? Anybody? Okay, those hands that I don't see, are you ready to leave now or? Okay, so typically everybody's ready to have more money. And because we have the desire, where we fall short normally is in the area of discipline, right? So everybody's ready to get more, but when we talk about what we need to do to have more, a little less enthusiastic. So I'm going to ask you to bring all of your desire, commit to your discipline. And what I'm going to share with you is a little bit of the direction. So the 3 Ds for today will be your desire, discipline, and the direction that we can put together to have more money. And I'm going to ask you to start with a little bit of a self-assessment. So my first question, I have 3, and you only have to answer 2 of the 3. Okay, so the first question is, how do you or how have you ranked in terms of your seriousness about creating more money through saving and investing? So I'm not talking about what you've earned, talking about your commitment to save and invest. So on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd like to ask everybody to write down a number. Where do you fit in terms of the seriousness you've put into saving and investing? Everybody, pens up, write down a number, 1 to 10. Jot down your number. Okay, second question. If you had greater assets, what would you do more of, or what would you do differently? You can answer that question, or you can answer the third question, which is, if you could impact one issue in the world with the resources needed to make a difference, what would that be? Okay, so just a thought about that. Now, I'm going to answer these 3 questions just to kick us off. How would I rate myself in terms of my seriousness about creating more through saving and investing? I would say that I rank myself between an 8.5 and a 9. And let me tell you how I gave myself that ranking. I started about the age of 10. I can't count back far enough to remember exactly when, but about the age of 10. My parents taught me that it was very important to save. And so I walked about 2 miles to the savings and loan. And when I get a little money, because I came from a background of a poor working family, so it didn't have much. But when I had some money, I took it to the savings and loan and I put it in the bank. And most of it went there. I didn't always have to do it, but I understood the importance. And I was taught that the importance was so that I could go to college when I got older. So that's where I started. And then around the age of when I finished college, just before I finished, the banks had a special opportunity. They were offering to give college seniors a loan. Now, you don't want to start out borrowing, but let me tell you what they did. They said, we will give you this loan in your senior year, and you don't have to pay any interest or pay it back until a year after you graduate. So you had a whole year, your senior year, didn't know it. You had another year to earn some money and then pay it back. And only at that point did you have to start paying interest. So I thought, that sounds really interesting. So I took their money, I put it in the bank. I kept it until it was time, a year after I graduated, at the end of that year, when it was time to pay them back, I went over and handed them their money back. In the meantime, I put it in the bank and made some interest and bought myself a new car. Okay, so that was my graduation present to me. And I paid for that car. Okay? I had the money, but I used the money to make sure that I would be without debt. Then, a little later, in my early 20s, I started going to seminars. There were investment brokerage firms that gave free seminars to people, Smith Barney, Merrill Lynch, a whole host of them. And why did they do it? Because they wanted to acquaint people with investing so that people would go to their firm. So just as you are here today, I was there. I was in the seat learning some of the basic principles that have helped me through life. So that was my third area of paying attention at a very young age, or relatively young. And then the third thing, or the fourth thing I did that I think says that I was really always paying attention to saving and investing, was that I decided to get a real estate license, not because I was interested in selling real estate, but it occurred to me that one of the biggest investments I was probably going to make would be in the area of buying property. And how better to understand all of the intricacies than to have a real estate license. Not to mention, I would get to save half of the seller's commission or the buyer's commission. So I got a real estate license for that reason. So I think I've been pretty focused during my life on the issue of how to save and how to invest. And we'll be talking more about the investment part. And then the second question, because you only have to answer two of these, so I'll answer number two. If I had greater assets, what would I do? Well, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've traveled through most of North America, Central America, much of South America. I've traveled through much of Europe, East Africa, West Africa, the Middle East, Asia, Oceania, and I've been in the islands to enjoy the islands in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Ocean. So guess what I'd do if I had more money? I'd travel, okay? So, and if there were one thing I could do to make a difference in the world, if I had the resources to do that, I think we should truly eradicate hunger among the many things that we can do to help the rest of the world. So here's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to turn to someone at your table, sitting next to you. Hopefully, the person that you don't know, if there's somebody there that you don't know, turn to them and tell them how you rated yourself in terms of your ability to save and invest. And then tell them the answer to either number 2 or number 3. So I'm going to give you 1 minute to talk. Person number 1 talks, and then person number 2 will talk for the next minute. And if you don't have a partner, who's at a table without a partner? Anybody at a table without a partner? And switch. Let's let the other person have a word. Okay. Let's get back together. Hello, hello. Okay, let's get started again. I'm glad that got a lot of enthusiasm. So let me ask. Did many of you find that there's some more room to pay attention to saving and investing? So I heard some no's. That means that everybody's a 10. Is that what I heard? Oh, okay. So there is more room for savings and investing. Okay, very good. I'm glad to know that because that means our time will be well spent. Okay, so I want to give you an overview of some of the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about stocks and bonds. You've all heard of those. Probably you've heard about mutual funds and hopefully about ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, and I'll be talking about that in more detail. We'll talk about money markets, CDs, which are certificates of deposit. We'll talk about when you can start to invest, how much you need before you start to invest, and who are the people who can help you invest. And I'm going to talk specifically about fiduciaries, and I'll define that a little bit later. But those are some of the things we're going to cover. So here's the major question. If what we want to talk about is how to make more money, and perhaps you already don't have enough of it, how do we get there? How do we get there when we need more of the very thing we're talking about? And in fact, no matter what you say about money, it's a commodity that we all need. So how do we figure out how to have more of it? The first thing is we need to start with a basic principle, and that is to save some money. That's step number one, okay? We all come across some money, but our saving of it varies, right? And the issue is that rather than spending a lot of our time saving money, we spend a good deal of our time doing what? Spending it, yeah. We're pretty good about this lower part, right? We know that one pretty well, okay? So I'm going to talk about some of the ways that we can save money. Just ways that probably all of us experience beyond looking, under the cushions in the couch, the change that fell there. What are some of the things in our everyday life that we might do a little bit differently that would help us save money? Now, lots of people talk about Starbucks and their coffee. Maybe rather than going out every morning and getting that coffee. Good, invest in a coffee pot. That might save a lot of money. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. How about saving money on subscriptions? I don't know about you, but from time to time, I get offers that say, would you like to subscribe to this? And I think, yeah, that sounds great. And they say, we'll give it to you for 3 months for free. Yeah, you all know about that? I take it for 3 months for free, but you know what I do? About 3 days, but the minute I take it, I write on my calendar when the 3 months is up. And 3 days before that, I cancel. Okay? Because we get caught up in all of those subscriptions and we don't notice how many there are. And so I make sure I cancel. Now, there's some other subscriptions that perhaps we want, but we really don't have to use all of the time. Anybody subscribe to the movie things like HBO and Netflix and that sort of thing? Anybody do that? Yeah, yeah. Okay, great entertainment. I sign up for that. But let me tell you what happened by chance for me. I was going to take a vacation for 2 weeks. And I thought, why don't I put my Netflix account on vacation mode? And then I thought, well, if I cut it off for a whole month, don't cut it off, just put it on vacation mode. So it's there. You don't have to sign up and re-register or anything. A week before I leave, I don't have to watch any movies. I'll probably be pretty busy anyway. In a week when I come back, I'll probably be pretty busy, so I won't miss it. So I put it on vacation mode for a month. And then I thought, now I only happen to be a subscriber to one movie subscription, but I think of all the people who subscribe to maybe Netflix and HBO. What if you watched HBO for 3 months and put the other service on vacation mode and then take that one off, put HBO on subscription mode? So just switch them off, right? And so now you're only paying for one and you still get the service when you're ready for it to look at the others. I mean, that's another way that you might save some money. There are a lot of ways that we can save money if we're just paying attention to how we spend our money. I got a call from a friend one day who said to me, do you have a VPN service? Virtual private network service. And I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, I have a friend. Can you give me a friend's offer? I said, friend's offer. We probably all see that as well, where a business, whatever the business is, they're saying, invite your friends and we'll give you a month free and we'll give your friend a month for free, right? So everybody gets something out of this. But too often we don't pay attention. How about linking up with some of our friends and saying to them, when you see a friend's offer, you can call me and maybe I can join in on your friend's offer. And when I see something, I'll share it with you. And you can perhaps join the friend's offer and everybody benefits, right? So other examples of saving. What other things can we do that save money? Back. Read books online, okay? Because books online typically are a way to save money, absolutely. And in fact, in the US, people can even borrow books online for free from their library. Yeah, absolutely.
When you go to a restaurant, go for the cheapest.
Okay, so when we go out to eat, we don't have to eat the very expensive things on the menu. We can think about how much we want to spend on our lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever it is. Absolutely, and many of you know, if you've eaten out with me, that I drink lots of hot water instead of ordering many other things. So yes.
Like the free activities on your town, like for cultural activities, so you don't have to pay for them, or the free ticket, free days on your museum.
Yes, absolutely. The free days at the museum, the activities, the cultural activities that you can do for free, absolutely, or discounted. Sometimes they're discounted certain days of the week. So all we have to do is to pay attention if we really want to save, because we do a lot of spending. Now, why do we do so much spending? Why do we spend?
It's fun.
It's fun. It's fun. Okay, that's a real, that's reality. It's fun. Why else do we spend? It fills an emotional hole. You know, it feels kind of good to go out there and say, wow, I'd like to add that to my life, whatever it is, right? Why else do we spend? Some of it is the have-tos, right? We have basic needs, so we spend for basic needs, absolutely. Other reasons we spend.
Impulse.
Impulse, yes, you know, I had absolutely no intention of doing that, but oh, I just have to have it, right? So we spend for those reasons. Ellie?
I have 4 dogs, 6 cats.
Okay, so we've got lots of others that help us to have the cause to spend money. And how about all of the advertisements out there that are flashing at us? You know, buy this, buy that. Does that cause us to spend? Yeah. So we need to think about why we're spending and decide how much we're spending. So at each table, there are some handouts. The person in charge of handouts at your table, please give everyone at your table handout number 1, only handout number 1. Okay, now the reason I printed these out is because to see them on the screen is just a bit too small. But here's what this handout shares with us. Person A saved $2,000 a year for 10 years, and then they stopped saving. And the interest that was being earned was 10%. Person B didn't start saving at age 25, but instead started saving at age 35. And they saved $2,000 a year for the next 30 years. So I want you to talk to the people at your table. And I want you to talk about how much money did person A save? How much money totally, how much did they contribute? Totally, how much did person B contribute? And finally, no computers, please. Tell me how much money at age 65 you think each of these persons had. Just hazard a guess if they had saved this money and got 10% interest, okay? So put your heads together at your table and decide what you think it is.
Yes. So that they have. Yeah, I've said this. In fact, I used to share it. I said, I mean, you know, and then
Okay, so come up, I'd like to hear from each table, just some idea of how much money you think in total person A and person B have. Anybody want to hazard just a wild guess? Okay, first of all, let's do it together then. Everybody. Person A set aside $2,000 a year for 10 years. So the total amount that they set aside was $20,000. Person B set aside $60,000 because they set aside $2,000 a year for 30 years. And person A at the end of this period of time has over $560,000 $150,000. Person B, who saved $60,000 of their own cash, only has $300,000. And that is the power of compound interest. If you set aside money and you do it early for only 10 years, in the case of person A, that this person in this column only set aside money for 10 years and then they stopped. They didn't set aside another dime. And they have more money when they get to the bottom line than the person who set aside for 30 years but started 10 years later. I think this is the most dramatic thing I've ever seen. If somebody had shown me this when I was 20 years old, I just can't imagine what would have happened. Because we've all been told we need to save money. The difference is to see these numbers. They are striking. I don't think there's anything else that's more dramatic than this. And I encourage you, not only because I wanted you to see the numbers, but I also encourage you to take that sheet of paper and share it with someone who's younger. Show them. Don't just tell them you should save some money, show them the difference it can make. So, having paid attention to how we can save a little bit, we now need to think about how we look at our budget of money that we have available to us. And there's several tools online, so you can look online and see lots of them. They have different propositions about what you can do. One that I saw said, you should spend 50% of your money on needs, 30% on your wants. That's the fun stuff, Jackie. 20% either saving or repaying your debt. Okay. The other formula was 75% on expenses, 15% debt or investment, and 10% of savings. Now, what you do in terms of the formula you choose to use, and there are lots of them online, you can pick whichever one you want, but pick one. Know where your money is going. Because just like that slide that we just showed on your handout of cumulative interest that you could have earned, guess what? Many people are spending that cumulative interest. How are we paying that cumulative interest? When does that happen? When are we paying rather than receiving? Credit cards? Absolutely. Credit cards. We're on the reverse end of that. If we don't pay our credit cards off every month, we're on the reverse side of that person who was earning all that money because they started early. We're on the opposite end of that. Right? When else are we doing it? We're doing it another time when we might have a need to do it, but we probably don't think about it that way. And that is when we're paying a mortgage. Now, typically, a lot of people can't go out and pay cash for a mortgage on their home. But we're on the reverse side of that, earning money if we're paying a mortgage. Now, the key is, can you pay your mortgage down sooner? That's the trick. If you can put some money aside to the principal of that loan, even if you do it once a year, if you take some money, put it against the principal of that mortgage, just like that person earned all that money just by being there, the numbers are astounding, just astounding. So that's a major way that we could think about saving money, is to be on that end of the equation. The other thing is our children. For those of you who have children, of course, we want to see that children's needs are met, as well we should. But children are just like adults. Jackie said some of our spending is because it's fun. And kids are all about fun. That's what children's lives are about, right? But what if they had to pay a portion of some of those wants with their money? So you want X. I think X is pretty frivolous, but okay, tell you what. You can have X, but you've got to contribute 30% of X, and I'll give you the other 70%. See, because once it's my money, that's a lot different than when it's your money. Okay. So think about the buy-in, and at the same time, you're helping them learn the art of saving. So think about that. Consider that as an option. Okay. So now let's get to this thing called investments. Now that we've saved enough money to do something about it. We're going to start by talking about assets. And assets are something that are things that have value. So assets have value. And some of them are liquid and some of them are illiquid. So can somebody tell me an asset that happens to be a liquid asset? What's a liquid asset? Give me an example. Yeah, money, savings accounts. That's a liquid asset. Liquid asset. It means you can get to it and use it very quickly. And you can trade it for something. So I can come over and say, Gabby, if I give you $10, would you let me have this pen? She didn't even hesitate. She didn't even hesitate. She said, give me $10, you can have that pen. Okay? So it's liquid. And the minute I tell her I'm going to give her $10, she knows exactly what she's about to get from me. And she says, sure, you can have it. Okay. So they're liquid. Now, what would an illiquid asset be? Real estate. Real estate is illiquid. Okay. It may have value. It's an asset. It has value, but you can't get to it right away because you've got to find a buyer, and then you've got to prove that you own it, and then you've got to do some paperwork, and on and on and on. So it takes a while before you can actually get to that. So investments are a little bit different in that they are something that are going to be more valuable in the future. So let's talk about something like a car. Is a car an asset? Does it have value?
Yes.
Okay, so a car is an asset because it has value. But is it an investment? No, it is not an investment because the car devalues unless it's some very unique antique car. It's devaluing all the time. So there's a difference between assets and investments because investments are going to have more value in the future. So we want to look at not only the assets that we have, whether or not they're liquid or illiquid, but we want it something that's going to be more valuable in the future. So, sure.
With a for example, that I was thinking like, if you use your car for growing your business, would that also be accounted as not an investment? Like, for example, if I have a car now, I can do more deliveries, then my business can grow. Like that kind of expense that we have to make our business grow, are those investments?
Typically, the money you spend to make your business grow is an investment. However, you need to ask, is the car itself Okay, is the car. So you've invested in your business by being able to deliver. You're absolutely right. But the vehicle itself is going to depreciate, not appreciate. Okay? All right. So the investment tools we're going to use primarily are threefold. One, saving, so that we can get some of that compound interest. And it's normally advised that we have 3 to 6 months of savings before we do anything else. And the reason for that is to protect ourselves against emergencies. So everyone should be able to put their hands on 3 to 6 months of their expenses. And in order to know what that is, you need to have a budget so you know what your expenses really are. And so that's the second tool. Do you have a budget? Do you know what it is? And then thirdly, pay yourself first. Consider, if you can, targeting 10% of your income for you. Right? We know all these other things we have to pay. But how many of us say, the first thing I have to pay is me? Okay? That's a great way to start this process of investing. Now, I'm going to share some quotes by Warren Buffett. And the first quote by Buffett is, "Don't save what is left after spending, spend what is left after saving." Now, the reason I have some quotes from Warren Buffett happens to be a billionaire, so he's done well. He's done this in the financial world. That's how he's made his money. And he made a name for himself when he said, "It's very unfair that my secretary pays a greater percent of her only earnings in taxes than I do." And here he is, a billionaire. So the secretary pays, for example, 30% of her earnings, and he's only paying 10% of his. So he said that and made a name for himself doing it. So I'm going to share a few quotes from Warren Buffett. So the first investment we're going to talk about is a certificate of deposit. And a certificate of deposit has a guaranteed rate. Here's what a certificate of deposit is. You hand an institution a certain amount of money, and they promise you a certain rate of return at a particular interval. So you can say, "I'm going to give you this money for 3 months," and they have varying ways you can do it. Most typically, they are available 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. That's the most typical thing that you'll see. So you hand someone the money, an institution, and they say, "We promise you that at the end of this term, this is how much money you will get." Now, how does that differ from a savings account? The difference is the rate is probably going to be higher because you've guaranteed it will be there for whatever the term is that you've agreed to. And that investment is illiquid in the main, because if you take it before the term is over, you're going to lose some money. So you're pretty much saying, "I guarantee that I can put this money aside and not touch it until whatever term I've said I'm going to put the money aside for." And the rate is fixed. So that's what a certificate of deposit is. As I mentioned, they're normally for 3 years to 10 years. And one way to invest in certificates of deposit, this is just one particular way, is to do it based on what we call a ladder. And this is what that looks like. My ladder didn't come up. Where's my ladder? There it is. This is the interval, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And you say, and these are just some random numbers, but this is pretty much what it tends to look like. If you put the money aside for 6 months, they will pay you 3.8%. 1 year, you get 4.2%, and 2 years, you get 3.9%. And we invested in, let's say we had $1,200. So we took $400, we put it into a 3-month certificate, another 400 in a year, and another 400 in the 2 years. Why might we want to put it in a ladder? Anybody have any idea why we might want to do that?
So you have constant.
Yes, this way we have constant income. So in 6 months, in March, I've got that $400 back. I can now reinvest it for a year, which is going to mean that it would be then in my, I'd get the money back a year from March. If I reinvest it in a year, it'll be due in March of 2007. So I'm constantly getting a flow back. And I have the option to do something different. So maybe at the end of that term, I want to do something other than a certificate of deposit, and that's fine. I've got that money back. Another thing that could happen is that interest rates could change. And maybe the interest rate is higher. So now I've got that money back. I can put it out at an interest rate that's going to make even more money. Now, one of the reasons that you don't see anything listed in 5 years and 10 years very often is because so much can happen in the marketplace in 5 or 10 years. So an interest rate that's 3 or 4% now, maybe 10% then, and all that time our money was locked at 3 or 4. So getting it out there too far in advance might not be what you want to do. That's an example of using a ladder to invest that money. So the other thing that we can do, happened to money, we can use a money market. And a money market fluctuates. So a money market is a place where we put some money and it pays, again, typically better than a savings account. And it's something that we can get at the end of the day. So it's more liquid than is a certificate of deposit, because we can get that back at the end of the day if we have a money market. In fact, some money markets you can even write a check on, but we won't get into that detail. So certificates of deposit, money markets, those are both thought of as being pretty secure ways to invest, in that they're not risky in the main, and you can do a risk assessment. Yes. Oh, okay. Money market, and thank you for that question. Money market, I'm not sure that I can tell you what it means, but I can explain it to you. Okay. It means that the money is put aside in something that is different than savings. It can be put into an account. It can be an account or a fund. And the institution that provides it is investing that money. So they're taking, and that's what banks do anyway with savings account. They invest the money. So they're putting this money aside and allowing you at a little bit higher interest, normally than a savings account, to access the money. So I don't know that I've given you a great definition, but that's basically what it is. So that's one level of assessment. And at the bottom of that slide, it said risk assessment. One of the things you should know about yourself is your own level of risk assessment. Okay. And I put a couple of questions here that I found of how to assess your own personal risk assessment. And there are lots of tools on the internet that you can look at. Many brokerage firms also have a whole host of questions that they can ask you. The reason for knowing your level of risk assessment is because it will tell you something about how willing you are to take a risk with a certain amount of money. So for example, if someone, the first question is, if you've been given $1,000 and you're asked to choose between a sure gain of $500 or a 50% chance that you'll get $1,000, but a 50% chance that you'll get nothing. How do you feel about that proposition? Okay. Another question has to do with a stock that you bought. It's increased in value over 40%. What are you going to do? Are you going to consider selling enough of it to cover your original investment? Will you borrow money and buy more stock? Or will you sell it and move your cash to a low risk investment? Oh, I've got it now. Let me take that and run with it. Okay. So it's, and there are not right or wrong answers. Because at different times in our lives, we have different levels of risk assessment. In this room, just by looking through the room, I can see that we have some different age categories here. I'm 78 years old. I am not taking the kind of risk that I was willing to take when I was 20. Just can't do that, okay? Don't have years ahead of myself that I'm working to add to my income. So my level of risk tolerance is a lot lower than it used to be. So understand where your risk is, because if you are the person who says, if I lose $5, it's going to hurt me, you need to know that before you decide what kind of investment you're going to make, because I don't want you to feel a lot of pain. Okay, so decide, do you want something that's more secure, or are you willing to risk to get a little bit more? Now, Warren Buffett says you should profit from folly rather than participating in it. Some of you may have heard of the dot-com bubble. Anybody heard of that dot-com bubble? All of the businesses were running out saying, we're a dot-com, come invest with us. Everybody had a dot-com business, okay? Well, because everybody was investing in the dot-com businesses, there were other businesses that were pretty good value that nobody was really placing their money in. He says, don't get caught up in what becomes a bubble, because what happens to bubbles? They burst, okay? So he was saying, don't get caught up in that. Pay attention to what you're really doing here. Now, let's talk about bonds. Bonds are really an IOU. Some entity, be it a corporation, a government, a city, they're saying, we will lend you some money, or they're saying, please lend us some money. The bond issuer says, lend me some money, and I'll return the money to you at a certain period of time with a certain amount of interest. So it's pretty much a guaranteed, pretty secure kind of investment.
IOU make sense?
They just say, I owe you this money. So the I owe you. Yes, I owe you a certain amount of money. Okay.
It's an acronym.
Sometimes bonds become worthless. How does that happen?
Bonds are considered pretty secure, but if, let's say, for example, that a city says, I'm going to issue a bond because I'm going to put in a new sewer system in the city of XYZ. And somehow they don't raise the taxes to pay for that, then they don't have the money back and the bond could potentially become worthless.
But if it's low interest, I just happened to be working at a firm where bonds collapsed, and I was encountering all these poor old people with their worthless bonds because interest rates had gone so much higher, and the bond was maybe at 2.3%. And so after the interest rate went way up, their bonds were basically worthless.
Okay, so you're saying that because they were only earning 2%, their bonds were worthless. They couldn't sell them for sure.
Yeah.
Because people now can earn 5%
Yeah.
and nobody's gonna buy a 2% bond. Yes. And that's, so what happens is when you look at rates that you're securing for long term, remember that slide that I had that said you probably don't want to put that money aside for 10 years or 20 years because you don't know what's going to happen to rates. If you put a bond out there for a long time, it could be that the interest rates go up and nobody's willing to buy that bond, or whatever the entity is can't actually pay off the bond. Bonds are considered secure typically, but yes, that can happen.
Tell me, the bonds that you're talking about, are they the same type of bonds where I've got two children, and when each of them were born, various relatives gave those bond certificates?
Mhm.
Is that the same thing?
Yes, that's a bond.
Oh, so 15 years has been too long then, because my oldest is 15.
No. I'm just saying that that's a possibility. When somebody gives you a bond for 15 years, and especially if they give it to you as a gift, what they're doing is they're saying, here's a certain amount of interest that you will get at the end of this term. And we expect that it's going to be valid, okay? And so in that period of time, that's like a savings account, if you will. It's a promise to pay at that end of time. So no, I'm not saying that that's a bad gift to have, okay? I'm simply saying that you might want to think about whether you want to do it for a long term. The other thing about a bond is that very often bonds are called. You notice that here I mentioned callable. That means that the issuer can say, you know that $1,000 you gave me that I promised to pay you 5% on? Well, tell you what, I'm going to give you your $1,000 back now. And I'll give you whatever interest you earn today. And instead you thought that it was going to be earning interest maybe for 5 years on that amount. So they may pull it back. You should still get your interest, but it may not last as long as you thought. And the only real problem with that is, what's the market like when you get it back? What do you do in the marketplace? Yes.
So the difference, because the difference between a bond and like a COD is just simply the thing, the bond is you buy. It
Yes.
kind of works the same way. Sort of.
The CD kind of works like a bond in that it's a guaranteed amount of money over a guaranteed period of time. Yes. And the issuer is different typically. Yes, but not totally. Okay. So now let's talk about that interesting thing called stocks. The biggest risk is not to take a risk. That's the biggest risk that we have. Okay. A stock is a partial ownership in a corporation. Now, when you buy a bond, you're not buying a part of that municipality or government or corporation. You're not buying a part of it. You're just giving them some money for a period of time. But a stock says you have partial ownership. If 50 million people have partial ownership, the ownership itself isn't very important. I mean, you can't vote on what the company does because 50 million people aren't going to direct how the corporation is going to work. So that's not how it is. But you own, when you own a stock, you own a part of that corporation. Stocks can be volatile. That is, the price can go up and the price can come down. And why does the price go up or down? In part because of the product. Some of us in this room remember typewriters. Okay. Now, Smith Corona was a great typewriter company. So was, I think, Remington and Royal. Okay. But what do you think their stock are worth today?
Yeah.
Okay. So the product or the service that's being offered can simply no longer have value. Okay, so that's one of the things that can make a stock volatile. It just doesn't have value, the product or service anymore. It can also be because of the economy. We all have had the experience of the pandemic, and that caused some businesses to lose money because of the product or service that they had and the fact that people couldn't get out into the economy to use their products or services. And then there are competitors. So you need to think about who are the competitors in the marketplace, because this may look like a great stock. Oh my goodness, that's the best product in the world, until somebody else comes along with another. Right? And right now, Apple just offered its latest telephone, the iPhone 17, right? And I think just before this, one of the Android providers, I don't remember which one, but I know a couple of people who said, I just got a new da-da-da kind of phone. And in all honesty, as an Apple user, you know, it's like, that's great. Apple's coming out with new, not that I'm in the market to buy it, but okay. So in any event, the competitors that we have make a difference.
Is there
ranking between stocks that there are some stocks that do assure you, you know, what you invested in and some that are less
Okay,
secure or something like that.
excellent question. Are there some stocks that are more secure than others? Excellent question. And I'm going to say, no. You can't, okay? That's the risk that we're taking when we buy stocks, because it may be a great stock, but all these things could change. And when these things start to change, that affects the value of your stock. So when you play the stock game, there are no guarantees, okay? All right. Sorry about my slide not moving rapidly. How many in this room remember Sears? Okay. What was Sears, for those who might not know? What was Sears? Somebody tell me. A department store. Aha, okay, so here's some folks who know what I know. Sears was started out as a catalog store, okay? So for those of you who may not remember Sears's catalog store, they came out with the catalogs. I don't know if it was once a year, twice a year. Okay. Okay, and people couldn't wait for the catalog to come out, because this was a whole list of all kinds of things. It was like Christmas in a book. Okay? And people just flipped the pages to see all of the new things that were now available to be purchased, and they could be purchased through Sears. So Sears was a catalog business before it became a store. Most of us who know about it know it as a store, but it was a catalog company first. And in 1906, they started their first stock offering. An IPO is an initial public offering, but it's a stock offering. So, and they started out with 40 million shares. And in 1972, Sears was worth $18 billion. And I put the zeros up there so you can kind of get a sense of what it felt like. And then in 2005, they merged with Kmart. In 2007, they were worth $23 billion. And in 2018, they filed for bankruptcy. No promises. Okay, so there went Sears. But there's another side of what can happen with the stocks. And this other side is a side that talks about Apple stocks. Apple initially made their first public offering in 1980, and they sold their stock for $22 a share. And at that time, it was equivalent to about 1 day's pay if you made a minimum wage in the United States. So buying one share is equal to 1 day of pay in the US if you made a minimum wage. But in 1987, they had a stock split. Now, let me explain what a stock split means, because that's very important. We think about stocks normally in terms of how much does the stock cost? Is it increasing in value? But there's another way that a stock increases in value, and that's when it has a split. When a company announces a stock split, they say you will have, in this case, in 1987, you will get 2 shares for every 1 share that you earn. So let's assume that your share is worth $22. You don't get $44. What you get is 2 shares, each one worth $11. Okay. So your stock split, and you didn't get any more money, but you got more stock. So in 2000, it split 2 for 1. So now you have 4 shares, because you start out with 1 share. Now you have 4. There was another 2 for 1 split in 2005. Now you have 8. 2014, it split 7 to 1. That's typically very unusual, because most stock splits are 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. Unusual to have a 7 to 1 split. Now you have 56 shares. And then in 2020, it split 4-for-1, and you have 224 shares. So that $22,000 investment is worth approximately $45,000 because the stock prices went up and the splits enable that person to have more and more shares of that stock. So a part of the value of the stock can be that it splits, and one of the reasons that corporations split stocks is because they want the stock to be more accessible to more people. And they found that more people will buy a stock at $50 than they will at $3,000 a share. It's just what tends to happen. And so oftentimes they'll split the stock so the price is lower so that more people are in the marketplace buying their stock. That's the thinking behind it. So now your question is, okay, so which stock, if you've kind of convinced me that, stocks are something that I can really make some money with, well, which stocks should I think about? Well, the key here is to diversify. Because I can't tell you that Apple stock is better than Google stock. I can't tell you that it's better than Meta stock. I can't tell you. We just don't know. So one of the ways to have a little more security is to buy what's called a mutual fund. And what a mutual fund is it's a basket of stocks. And in that basket, because it's a whole basket, let's say in this case of technology stocks, you can get a bit of Apple and a bit of Samsung and a bit of Google and a bit of all the high-flying tech stocks. And you've got a little bit of them all together in this mutual fund. And the idea is that if one of them is not doing so well, there are probably some others that are. And so you've mitigated the fact that you're not going to take a loss because you picked just one. And the one you picked might not have been the high flyer because now you've got a whole basket of stocks. There may be a minimum purchase amount, not necessarily, but sometimes you have to buy a minimum amount to enter the mutual fund. Depends on which mutual fund you're buying from. And here's what Warren Buffett says. He says that the 19th century belonged to England, the 20th century belonged to the US, and the 21st century belongs to China. Invest accordingly. That's what he says. ETFs. ETFs are very much like mutual funds. These are the exchange traded funds. And they pool a group of stocks, and like mutual funds, they can pool it by market. So you can buy technology stocks or energy stocks or transportation, healthcare, just almost anything you can think of. They'll put it together in a whole group and they'll have a mutual fund around that particular industry. They often have professional managers who can monitor and adjust. So they'll say, okay, this stock has been doing really good. Let's put a little bit more of this one in, a little bit less of that one. And so they're moving around how much of each stock you have in it. You can also buy them based on the sector of the marketplace. They call this by large cap. These are really big companies. Small caps, not so big. Cap stands for capitalization. How much total money do they have? That company have. They can be emerging markets, that is small countries that are now beginning to work and develop a lot of their products and services. Like a smaller country like Vietnam might be an emerging market stock. Global stocks, so they'll have a group of stocks that represent companies around the world. Those are world stocks. And you can purchase a single share of an ETF. And you can sell it at the end. You can sell it in the market at any point in time. Whereas with a mutual fund, it's pretty liquid, but you have to wait till the end of the day to sell it. That's pretty good. So I think she'd sell me that pin for $10 if I promised her that at the end of the day, I'd have it, Tim. I think she was. But I have to check it. So how do we do this thing called trading? How do we actually trade in the marketplace? Well, there are a couple of ways to trade, more than a couple actually, and I'm going to talk about two. One is limit orders, and the second is dollar cost averaging. In the stock market, that market may move during the course of the day, and it may move dramatically or it may move a little bit. Trading in the marketplace is very much like buying an airline ticket. You can call the airlines and they'll sell you the airline ticket, but they're going to charge you a little bit for that. Whereas if you do it yourself online, no charge. Same thing when you're investing. So I'm just sharing a few things that you'll see if you go out and you make a trade yourself. They will tell you the price. And let's say that the price of what you're looking at today is $35.63. That's what it's selling for at this moment in time. And during the course of the day, it's sold for as low as $35.26 and as high as $35.92. So not a huge spread, right? But it's sold for within that range today. It will also tell you the range for the year preceding. So the 52-week range, it's sold for as little as $28.44. It's sold for as much as $37.52. So this particular stock is selling at this moment in time a little bit off of the high and a nice little bit over the lowest point that it sold during the course of the year. And it will ask you, if you're looking to do something, if you're looking to trade, it will say, are you buying or are you selling? You have to choose one. And then you can buy it at the market price. That is, when you click submit, that's the price, that's the market price that you're going to presumably get for that stock. There's some chances that if the market is, really exploding for some reason or another, then that might differ. But typically you get it at whatever the market price is right then. Or you can say, I have a limit. I want this stock, but I want it about 1% less than that. So you could say, I'll buy it if it's 1% less than the 35. And that's where you put in your order. And during the course of the day, as it's going up and down, you may get it for that price. Or you can say, this order is good until I cancel it. So I'll wait, maybe it doesn't drop to my price today, but I'll take it tomorrow or next week if it drops to that price. And if you put an order that says good until cancel, you can cancel it at any time until it actually does what you said you wanted. And then you purchase that stock. Now there's another way to purchase stock, and that's called dollar cost averaging. Those of you who have handouts, your turn again. Please hand out the dollar cost averaging handout. Yes.
I don't even know what parts value now.
The limit.
Yeah, because, what if it's like 1 cent more, and that would be okay. But I didn't put it on 1 cent.
Oh, they'll still buy it. If it's less, they'll buy it for you.
But if it's more, if it's like 1 cent more, then they won't buy it.
If that's your limit, yeah.
So I, but market value just because. I mean.
I'll give you
See
an
what I'm
answer,
saying?
yes,
Yeah.
but let me give you another answer to that.
And what about computerized?
Let me come back to that,
Yeah.
okay? Don't let me forget, because I do want to come back to that,
Okay.
okay? All right, let me talk about dollar cost averaging for a moment. Let's assume that we've got Ready Rosa, and Ready Rosa is ready to invest. And she's got her $1,200. I'm using 1,200 because it's $100 a month over 12 months, so it's easy to do. So Ready Rosa has $1,200. And instead of taking $1,200 and buying the stock, what she does is she says, I'm going to buy $100. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, number 3. Okay, I'm sorry, forgot to say and number 2. Sorry about that. Number 3. Does everybody have number 3 now? Okay. So what happens, instead of buying, I've got $1,200, I want to invest it in XYZ. And I can either spend one of the ways I can do it is buy $1,200 of XYZ right now, or I can dollar cost average it. Now, look at what happens if you do it by dollar cost averaging. Ready Rosa says, January, I'm ready to go. She puts $100 in. The stock costs $20 a share. How many shares does she get? She gets 5 shares. In February, she puts $100 in. The shares in February cost $15. How many shares does she get? 6.6, and so on down the line. Now, if you take all of the numbers in the dollar cost list, if you take all of those numbers and you add them up and you divide them by 12, you will see that the average cost of this share of this stock was $17.41. If you add all those numbers in the column up, divide by 12, that's what you'll come up with. And if you add all the shares that this person bought, you'll see that they in total bought 73 shares. So the average cost was $16.34 because their $1,200 gave them 73 shares. If they had bought all of the shares up front, they bought 20 shares or bought all of the shares at $20 a share and spent the entire $1,200, then their average cost would have been $20 a share. Everybody with me? Okay, so they saved money by dollar cost averaging because they bought more shares when it was lower. They bought fewer shares when it was higher. And so they end up with more shares at a lower cost by dollar cost averaging.
Predict that, you couldn't predict that.
You don't predict it, you simply go by the law of averages. That's what's going to happen in the law of averages. Typically, you're going to get the average price, and sometimes that price is going to be lower, sometimes higher. Now, let's look at what happens when Scary Sherry decides to invest. Okay. And this is handout number 4. Okay. Everybody got that? Okay, now here's what happens when Scary Sherry gets ready to invest. She's got her $1,200 in her tight little business. She's ready to go, and it's January and she's ready to invest. But when she puts that $100 on the table and she buys it for $20 a share, she's real happy, she's ready to go. And then February comes around. And when February comes around, she looks at the price of that stock. Oh my goodness, it's $5 cheaper. I don't want to touch that. I mean, I already spent $20. That's a $20. I don't want to buy it at $15. So she passes on February. Then when March comes around and it's $10, this is what is going down. I don't want to buy it at $8. She passes again. And then April, not touching it. May, won't have it. June, no way. But then July comes around and it's worth $21. Wow. Okay, that's what we're talking about. $21, I'll take my $100 worth. And then in August, $22, oh, we're headed in the right direction. Buy some more stock in August. September 23, oh, yes, 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 this is what we've been talking about. She buys some more. October, oh my goodness, it has taken the largest dip ever. This is $8 off. I'm not touching that. November, thank goodness, it's back to 20, I'll buy it. And December, it's at 22, I'll buy it. So she spent $600. She didn't spend all the money, she spent $600. And her average cost is $26 a share. Why? Because she bought it at its high and she didn't touch it when she could have gotten more shares, right? And so the right way to have done this, look at what happened with her and what happened with Ready Rosa. Ready Rosa bought it at $16.34, I think it is, on average a share. And Scary Sherry is out there buying it at 26. She would have done better, but bought it all at the beginning of the year. So it's just one way to do it. Doesn't mean that that's the only way to do it, but that's an option. And you should know that that's an option to buy it, because cyclically it may be down a bit, it may be up a bit, and that may be a good way to purchase it. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. And we always look back to see what has happened. And we love those things that have performed well in the past. And possibly we should give value to that. But there's not a guarantee about what's going to happen in the future. So there are rating agencies that help us to make decisions. And one of those rating agencies for mutual funds is an agency called Morningstar. And if you go out to a rating agency, what they will tell you is they will tell you the price of whatever it is you're looking at. They will tell you what it's cost over 52 weeks, you know, what the low was, what the high is. They will tell you what that mutual fund holds, what, at least it'll tell you the top maybe 10 stocks that mutual fund has in its basket. What's the biggest holdings that it has? It'll tell you an expense ratio. Expense ratios can be somewhat significant because the lower the expense ratio, the more money you have. And there's some money that has to be spent for them to analyze the stock, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some expenses. But some expense ratios are significantly higher than others. And it'll tell you the category. How is this particular mutual fund? What category is it in? Is it mostly in technology? Is it mostly in transportation, whatever? And it will give you an analysis. Here's what we think about that particular mutual fund. So that's a way of taking a look at an analysis just beyond my own thoughts. Oh, I like the name of that. There are tools out there that will give you an analysis of a particular mutual fund, and it's always good, no matter who's doing the decision making for you, to look at it for yourself and see what you think. So how do I start it? Suppose I'm ready to start investing. How do I do this? Sure.
So I was just looking at Scary Sherry.
Yes. Yes.
So her average cost, she never paid that, so. I was just looking at the average cost that she paid for those stocks, and she never actually paid $26. So she actually, you know, because she paid less every month that she did pay, but the fact that she didn't invest made it more expensive. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the average cost.
Well, okay, so if you add these up, what you'll see is that she was, because she didn't take it, she only bought it when it was at its high. And so she ended up spending more than the average price of it. Yes. You can check my math. Make sure I'm right.
Just trying to understand. No. Just trying to.
I think I weighted out.
Yes. Okay. So I suggest that you get a risk assessment for yourself, just so you have an idea. Are you going to absolutely lose your mind if you see the stock go down by $2, okay? And it can also tell you how often you want to look at it. Because if you look at it every day, that might be too much for you, okay? Probably is too much, because you don't need to probably look at anything every day, when it's in the market. But just kind of know how you're gonna feel, and when you talk to a brokerage firm, depending on what you're buying, they may want to assess your risk assessment so that they know what the right combination things are for you. Identify a fiduciary. I mentioned early on that I was going to talk about fiduciaries. Fiduciaries are people who must work on your behalf. That's different than a broker who's working purely on commission, because what may happen is somebody comes to the broker, let's say broker Susie here, and I go to broker Susie and I say, Susie, I've got this great offer for you. See, I'm selling these stocks, and if you'll sell them, I'll give you 5% for, all the stock that you sell here.
Been there.
Oh, she's been there. She knows what I'm talking about, okay? And so Susie's making 5% because I promised her I'd give her 5%. She's pushing those stocks so she can make her earnings, right? She's got to make a living. And then somebody else comes along and says, Susie, I'm gonna pay you 5.5% if you'll sell these stocks. So Susie calls me up and says, Enaid, that stock that you bought, I got another idea for you. Why don't we sell that one and buy this one, okay? So she's generated a sell commission and she's generated another buy commission, okay? And so that's how she earns her money, okay? If a person is a fiduciary, they're looking out for your best interest. They are not selling you a stock simply because they're going to get a commission today or tomorrow. You're going to pay. Somebody is paying these people. I would suggest that you might want to pay sooner rather than later. Okay, so just know this is the cost for doing this trade. When you work with a brokerage firm, typically they'll let you trade stocks for free. There's not a charge to do the trade. Of course, they've made some money somewhere along the line in their business. Understand that. It's sort of like a bank. A bank isn't giving you an interest rate for free. They're making money in another way, and that's how they're able to staff themselves and pay you an interest rate. Acquaint yourself with some of the evaluation tools that are out there. You can open an account and look at the tools. So, for example, you can open an account, not spend 1 cent, just say, I want to open an account, and you will see an entire university levels worth of information to educate yourself on this whole issue of investing. There are incredible, enormous amounts of information there. You can just tune in any time of day or night and just read about whatever it is you're interested in today and learn just an enormous amount of information for free. Take your time and learn what it is you're interested in. Take charge of your finances and set aside the time and schedule to invest. When we talk about having time, I know all of us feel like, and I can say as a retired person, many of my friends and I often say, how did we ever hold a job? We are so busy. How could we have ever worked and done all of these things? My goodness, right? So we all find ourselves busy in our lives, but we all find ourselves busy, but yet when it comes time for the holidays, when Navidad rolls around, we find the time to take care of all that, right? We go shopping and we go wrapping and visiting. We find the time, okay? So we can find the time to invest if that's what we want to do. So I suggest that you think about identifying that time that's important to you. Yes, absolutely.
What about things like cryptocurrency and all that?
I will tell you that I do not understand cryptocurrency. And Warren Buffett's comment about crypto was, I don't invest in anything I don't understand. Now, I'm not saying that it's not something you should do. I'm just saying that I don't understand it, so I don't do it. So learn about it. Learn about it.
Are there ETFs and Chinese stocks?
I can't answer that because I just don't know.
If that's the wave of the future.
Whether or not it would say it was Chinese, I don't know. What it might say something like is that it's a world stock that holds a world stock rather than.
Purely Chinese.
I just don't know. I've not looked to see if there's something that tells you it's purely Chinese. Okay, but it might be heavily weighted in China. So you want to look and see what's in the basket if you go. Did I see a hand over here?
No.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay. So here's a caveat about all of this talk about investing. If it sounds too good to be true, how does that end? It probably is too good to be true. And I want to give you a real example from Costa Rica. The brothers, yes. For those of you who don't know about the brothers, I don't remember the exact numbers, so don't hold me to these numbers, but what happened with the brothers was, the brothers said, if you give me whatever amount of money,
$10,000 if you're initially.
okay, $10,000 as an initial investment, I will pay you. Do you know what the interest rate was?
So crazy, it was 3% a month.
3%, yes.
Okay, so 3% a month is times 12, 36. Now, I don't know what the interest rates were then, but here's what you need to think about. I don't remember a time in my lifetime or anybody's lifetime that I know about that was paying 36% interest per month. But people were getting it, right? And why were they getting it? For a while, they were getting it. It was a Ponzi scheme, okay? And a Ponzi scheme is where they're taking in lots and lots of money and they're doing everything, paying people back until suddenly they don't get any new money and they can't pay it all back.
So what actually happened, because I was involved with this.
Okay.
A certain person that I was caring for in his old age asked for his whole money back and he didn't have it. Ricky didn't have the money.
$250,000, and because he didn't pay this fellow back, this fellow went public, and that's what crashed the brothers. Please don't assassinate me. Seriously, it was extremely stressful time, and then he was exposed as a pyramid, and then he ran away and got a face change in Eastern Europe, and then his brother got in jail and was actually killed in jail. And he just kind of went away. And the original way that the organization or the whatever you want to call it started was it was money during the Iran-Contra war, during the Contra war. So he was paid apparently by the US government, or he got funds from the US government to start this up. So don't quote me on that. You never heard it from me.
But here's how you kind of figure it out. You can always figure out in general what interest rates are. And if interest rates are 4 or 5% and somebody's offering you, and that's annually, and somebody's offering you 3% a month or 36%, something's wrong, right? I mean, because they're making more than that. So where are they getting that money from? Okay, it's either something that's not legal or it's Ponzi scheme. Right? So if it sounds too good to be true, it is. Okay. So do be careful about that. And with that, I want to go back and take a look at some of the things we've talked about. We've talked about the incredible importance of earning compound interest when we save. Being on the other side of that equation whenever we're paying back a loan, so we want to pay our credit cards off. We want to pay down principal as quickly as we can. If it's on something like a mortgage that we simply can't pay in full at one point in time. We've talked about certificates of deposit and exchange traded funds and mutual funds, typically thought of as pretty secure kinds of investments in terms of not being volatile. Stocks, more volatile, bonds, money markets, that when we diversify, we're more likely to have good results because we've got a mixture of things. We're not just putting it all on one issue or into one specific marketplace. How to trade, we can do limit orders saying I only want so much of this, or we can dollar cost average. And I want to come back to your question on limit orders here. We talked about some ways of evaluating both our own assessment about risk and also how we can get evaluations to understand other investment vehicles like mutual funds. We talked about having fiduciaries, that is, people who are in fact working in our best interest, not simply based on the commission that they're getting for somebody whose stock they're promoting. And we talked about ways to place orders. So I'd like to ask somebody to start and tell me something perhaps that you learned, that you found beneficial, question. Okay, and your question. All right.
Okay, so at some point I converted my mutual funds to ETFs. Some of them were correspondingly because of the fees. And I saw no advantage to having a mutual fund over an ETF. So I got out of mutual funds. So I'd like to see if you have any insight as to why a mutual fund versus an ETF. And I've been very happy with my ETFs.
I concur. There's a lot of people in the marketplace who say an ETF is a little bit better than having a mutual fund because of the funds involved. And so, yes, mutual funds are more actively managed.
Yes.
And because they have managers who are constantly looking and maneuvering the mutual fund more actively than the ETF, there is a concept that they may perform better. But can't tell you overall, but I can tell you that that's the difference. That's why people say.
What about the difference between dividend stocks and just, income? Dividends, there are dividend stocks, and then there's just stocks that you sell for profit.
Okay. And that's something I didn't talk about, which is dividends. Some stocks pay dividends. And the first thing I want to say about dividends is if you're getting dividends on the stocks that you hold, reinvest them. That's the same as your compound interest. Thank you. So if you're holding a stock and you're holding it for a term, don't just take your dividends out, reinvest them, because you've already said you like that. So reinvest your dividends in your stocks. Now, the difference between a stock that pays dividends and one that doesn't depends upon the idea of a dividend is the holder of that stock is saying, we're going to pay you a little bit constantly to say, here's a little bit of benefit for holding our stock. It could be that stock performs better or not better than a stock that's simply increasing in value. So you have to look at the stock overall. And I don't know how to tell you how to assess whether or not you're better off with a stock that specifically pays a dividend than another stock that's not paying a dividend, but because of how it's performing in the marketplace, may be doing just as well.
Or how long to hold a non-dividend stock,
And how long to hold it is simply a matter of what you think.
If you measure it against what you could get in an interest.
Oh, if you're measuring a stock against what you can get in interest, it has to do with where you started.
Yeah.
And how long you're willing to hold the stock. In general, the stock market has performed better than any interest rate.
Depending on the
just-
stock.
depending on the stock. And that's why we talk about diversifying stock with the baskets of mutual funds or ETFs.
And I really like Morningstar.
Okay.
I don't know, do you have any opinion about Morningstar? I feel like.
She asked about the rating agency Morningstar, which I mentioned. And yes, Morningstar has a tremendous amount of information in the evaluation of mutual funds. I find it to be very helpful because of all the data it gives. The only negative I would say about Morningstar is they're looking backwards, which is the only way we can look at it, because we don't know what the future holds, okay? So the only thing people have said about it is understand the information that they're giving you is a backward look. But that's the only thing there is. We can't look forward.
And so do you trust, sometimes it's just really crazy. They have different, like Schwab might give 2 stars and Morningstar gives 4 stars and the prices, sometimes it doesn't make any sense to me. So do you trust their star system too?
Do I trust the star system of the various agencies
Morningstar.
of Morningstar? I would say that it's a point of reference. Okay, I wouldn't say that I do trust, I don't trust. I would simply say that's some information out there. And I would look at it and say, sounds good to me, or no.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I've seen like the S&P 500
Mhm.
and that it's more like a safer investment. Because there are like, from what I've understood, it's like the 500 more profitable, more stable companies in the world. Is it like, I understand there's no guarantee, but starting there, is it a better starting point than in other kind of stuff?
So she's talking about the S&P 500, which is a group of stocks that represent 500 companies, versus the Dow Jones, which represents the top 1,000 the very, very large companies, versus the NASDAQ, which tends to be more of the newer, used to be much of the tech firm industry was in the NASDAQ. I would say that looking at an index, and that's what those are indexes of funds. And so at some point in time, one index may be better than another. I wouldn't say that wouldn't necessarily say I would only buy in the NASDAQ, or I would only buy in the Dow, or I would only buy in the S&P 500, because it depends on what you're buying. And that particular area of the market is not guaranteed to be any better or any worse than any other area. But I would also say, if you're going to invest, don't just look at numbers in the stock market, look at the world around you. Because if the world around us is crumbling, the market's gonna crumble, okay? So we shouldn't do this in isolation of the reality that surrounds us. And so particularly when we have money in the market, I'm not saying, run like Scary Sherry every time something happens in the world, because something's always happening in the world. But don't fail to be aware of the world around us.
This is sort of off the subject, cut me off. Gold is another way to invest. I was a teacher, I worked with, I was a teacher, I worked with foreigners. In Asia, culturally, people, when they have money, they buy gold. And Chinese gold is usually 22% gold. So I worked with the monk from Laos. They had these beautiful big gold chains, some of them. And so I bought several of the chains. And so, but when I try to sell them, they have to assay the chain to make sure it's actually 22%. At one point, one was 18%, so I got a little less. But I found out that if you want to invest in gold, the gold with certificates, like the official, like the Cougarans from South Africa, the coins,
or the maple leaf from Canada are better property, because they don't have to be essayed, they are guaranteed to be a certain percentage of gold, so anyway. But
Thank you. What she's sharing with us is what's called the precious metals part of the marketplace. And the thing about precious metals is that they do have to be evaluated, assayed, as she called it. And so that's one of the issues. When you look at the things that I've read about the market, say that gold, it does have its spurts, especially if the stock market goes down, then gold typically goes up when people are not feeling very secure. But in terms of growth over time, the stock market has outperformed the gold or the precious metals, generally speaking. Okay, so let me quickly ask comments, thoughts, value added, new learnings. Yes.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank you for all this information. And at the beginning, you asked if the investment options you are going to show are going to be available for the persons here or not. So there are some tax issues that doesn't allow US citizens, for example, to invest in every options here in Costa Rica or in other things. And then the other thing that we should, as investors, look at is taxes. I'm afraid of that, but that's important too. So that's my opinion.
Other insights, comments? No.
sorry, again, my best investment was the house I bought in Brazil.
Okay.
Because I bought it in 2007, in 2008, the stock market in the real estate market in the US collapsed. So in Costa Rica, they took better care of, things like that.
Okay. Yes.
I really do want to thank you because great grandfather Paul Nystrom was an economist, and during the Depression, he bought pennies. He stored pennies stock, and he sold in time. So our whole lineage of family has been fortunate enough to be receiving the blessings that he was wise enough to get into. And I also want to say that my dad passed away last year, and he had a lot of, quite a lot of money saved to come back. And my dad always used to say, Gail, get into stocks, and you have to learn how to do it. And I go, and it's really interesting that all of these concepts that you're talking about, I have heard all my life. Like little tidbits, this and that and the other thing, and I never realized how wise those started to say, but now members of our family, I'm not sorry to say, but we're only and so because of that, I now have the house of my dreams, and that's my investment, and that's going to be my legacy for my kids. I can't do this. I really would not be able to do this investment business. But thank you so much. Making us information sort of understandable.
Okay, so in closing, go ahead, Jackie. Sure.
What really made me think is just, this is where you really have to educate yourself, and you really have to do the homework. So this kind of information you hear about, or learn about today, then it kind of puts you on your way, because you really, you sit around, you scroll on your phone, it's like, well, you could be watching investment videos, you could be watching, teaching, educating yourself on these things, and other things in our lives, but definitely this, our finances, our future, so thank you.
Thank you.
Vivek, here's the last question. Where would be the best place to start learning more about investments?
hopefully a little bit started today. And also I would say if you go out to one of the, or rather than just the mutual funds, if you just want to learn more generally, you can go out to like signing into an account for free on Schwab and just taking, you know, they have short segments, 20 minutes, they have longer segments, and just, I'm telling you, it's amazing the information that's there, and you can decide what it is you want to learn more about.
You mean that there's videos on Schwab? You mean like there's videos on Schwab that are like educational?
Yes, yes.
To answer to that question, here is the banks, the national banks here, who have a little money with them in the city or whatever, they give free seminars.
Okay, so she was saying that there are free seminars at the banks here as well. Yes,
They send me things every now and then, and I participate online with them.
so you can participate online with the banks here in Costa Rica. Yes,
I really think the smartest thing is for people to use a certified financial planner. I mean,
Yes.
that's because this is a lot to, you know, unless you want to devote your life to this, you know, you're gonna probably do better with a certified financial planner who does devote their life to it.
yes. And so the concept is to use a certified financial planner. These are people who are certified, who know all about the market and who can guide you and who will definitely give you a risk assessment before they start placing your money into various buckets. Absolutely. Okay. So let me just close out by saying, this is the last thing I'll say. And that is, you can think about this as being something that one day you will do, or you can consider this to be day one. That maybe some of the information here has started you to think about what you want to go as you go forward. It's your decision. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Enaid. That was really insightful, informative. I think we all have a lot to think about now, so thank you. Just a few announcements. First of all, is it Loretta? Loretta, yeah. Loretta brought her British ginger tea and she has it to sample in the back. And as we mentioned, maybe a few people that came in late, there is Laura Cascante brought sweet rolls. And so those are for sale and for also some samples there. Did you want to say something about the tea?
Only that it's fabulous, it's ginger, there's two types, the original, which has no sweetening, it just has ginger roots, blueberries and cinnamon and water, and then this other version is sweetened with local honey, so it's the same ingredients plus honey. I drink it every day, I haven't had a cold in several years. The ingredient, everything there's a write-up about it, just to give you information about the ingredients if you don't know, just familiarize yourself with eating and drinking to keep ourselves out of the doctor's offices. And it's my birthday next week, I'll be 53 and I can't wait.
Thank you. Laura, do you want to say something about your product?
Hi, in the table you have cinnamon rolls samples, so you, and also with frosting if you want to try it. And I also brought a few boxes in case you want to take some home. I brought cheddar and jalapeno for the savory ones, and more of the cinnamon rolls. Hope you enjoy them.
And you deliver.
Yeah, I do deliver in the western area of San Jose, and my company is named Panore, and you can find me in Instagram, and I can also share the Instagram link on WhatsApp.
Website.
No website, not yet.
Also, my tea is available in Canada, in
Green Market.
and Green Center in Excel.
Green Center.
And it will be available, we do tea bags now, but we're just launching tea bags that will be available online. You went in there as well.
What's the name of her?
British ginger tea. So there's right up, there's information in the
The
back.
bottle's in the back. Loretta's British ginger tea. It's really, really good if you haven't tried it. Go for it. Okay, so now we're gonna do our door. Oh, do you wanna? We'll do that, okay. Gary, you wanna come up? So in November, we are having a goods and service holiday market. So Gary Brown is here from the northern zone. She drove a far distance to get here. And she's on our task force, so she's gonna provide us with some more information. And I think we still need vendors and we are welcome to vendors.
Exactly. And this microphone makes me crazy nervous, but normally I'm not nervous about stuff. Okay, so the task force has been working for a few months on making sure that we are trying to tick every single box of all the things that we heard in the feedback from some of the previous years, sort of event or the fairs that we've done in the past. And one of the things that we heard was that at Tin Ho, as much as we absolutely love Tin Ho for everything that our relationship has built over the many, many years, was that one, space-wise, it was a little bit restricting. And also it didn't feel very welcoming to the rest of the public. So we were kind of all selling to each other. And so what we wanted to do was find a place. And believe me, I assure you, we looked for about 1,000 places we filtered through many, many places. And so basically we found a place that has enough foot traffic to feel pretty confident that we're gonna get some visibility. So that's really important. So we're trying to answer that question. The other thing that obviously this network of amazing people, women, but we got a man in here, you guys. Okay. This incredible group of women, one of the things that we know is the best thing for all of us is to continue to expand our network, right? And so we want to make sure that this first year that we're doing this, we're really trying to invite vendors that could just participate in this feria or hopefully turn them into new members, right? And then the other thing is at the actual feria, we want to really promote not only each individual thing that everybody has selling at their stand, but also it's a really beautiful example of what our network is, what we're doing. We're supporting women in business and their products and exactly what we're doing here in these meetings every month. And so we really want to be able to be very inviting to the people who come to purchase at the feria. So there's a couple of things that I want to make sure everybody knows. Hopefully, all of you are members, hopefully. And then that would mean that all of you are in the chat, but just in case, Loretta wears many hats. So Loretta not only is the incredible tea making lady, British tea making lady, she is also going to be our live music at the feria, which if you have not heard her sing, prepare to have your hair blown back. It is incredible. And you will probably like cry because it's so beautiful. So there's that. So we're going to have live music. We're between 4 and 5, 30-minute presentations or workshops. Some of them are presentations, some are workshops. So they're just going to be 30 minutes in between when she can actually drink some of her tea in between singing and things like that. So we're going to have not just the video, we're going to have other things that will draw people in. We're also working on making sure that on the ground nearby the location and to make sure that we're advertising. So we have a banner coming. We're working on that. And by the way, the art that you've seen, Ana Maria has been incredible and she's been working on helping to make sure that the art is there. And also, I do want to mention this. We really were trying to make sure that the title of this video is very inclusive. And we're really trying to figure it out. But once we put out the art into the chat, we got some feedback. And so we've updated the title of that to be not an exact translation from English to Spanish, which sometimes is perfectly okay. So, because sometimes Spanish stuff is a lot longer than the English version of things. So, but as of right now, we're calling it the Mercadito Festivo in Spanish, and in English, what are we calling it? Christmas market. No, we're not calling it Christmas market. No. Holiday market. Oh my gosh, it's the microphone, it makes me nervous. Okay, so that's gonna be on the 23rd of November. You can sign up now to be a vendor, and I really encourage you to do that. We have in previous fairs that I have participated in, I think we probably have maybe around 15. I'm sure somebody can 15 stands because of the limited amount of space. We have 40 of them available. So we could get up to like 43, I think, but that's a lot of space and it's going to be incredible. The more that we can fill it in, obviously that's going to draw in more people to want to come to the video. So I need everybody to one, really consider having a stand. It's a very, very accessible price. I think for members, we're at 10,000. There's nobody here to correct me. If somebody can tell me. 15,000 for members, 20 for non-members. Thank you so much. It's changed about 20 times, so that's why we're at that point. And so it's very accessible price. I'm sure you'll make way more money than that, and it'll be really worth it. And then we also have so the 23rd of November, and it's going to be a lot longer. That's another thing that in the previous years, it kind of went until our normal ending time of these meetings. So we will start at 10 o'clock and we're going to go until 4. So that means vendors should start setting up at 9. And then of course, I don't know, whenever Loretta stops singing is when I'm leaving. So that's, yeah, we could go right into the evening. You don't know. So it's also Sunday and at the location in Ciudad Colon. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
At the location, they regularly have ferias there, and like every week. And I think some of you go there every week. So we're really hoping that it's kind of one of those stomping grounds that we're all accustomed to going to, and we all feel really comfortable inviting everybody we know to come. So do you feel like I covered all the stuff?
Question.
Okay.
Is there going to be social media or the flyers that we can post on our social media?
Yes. You're not yet in the chat, so you haven't seen it yet, but we did share the link in the chat and that flyer. You're welcome to send the flyer and the link to invite anybody who wants to be a vendor, and then feel super free to share on all of your chats that you're in and all of your social medias. And I'm sure all of you are on like Twitter and TikTok and all that stuff, right? I'm not. I'm only on like Instagram and stuff like that, but share it on all of your things because obviously the end goal is to try to get as much activity as we can, right? So now have I covered everything? Yeah. Okay, thank you. And also I'd just like to say, I see a lot of familiar faces, which I love. And I also see some faces.
What about lunch?
Oh, yeah.
Lunch right now? You mean lunch at the feria or lunch today?
No, lunch at the ferry. On November 23rd, are we all gonna go together to have lunch? Well, we can't. No.
I don't have the answer to that question, but I'm gonna bring it to the task. I'm gonna talk to the task force about that. I don't think that we have defined that. What I do know is that we're not allowed to sell, this is an important factor, because of permits and insurances, we're not allowed to assemble food for people to eat. So if it's already packaged, if it comes packaged, you're absolutely allowed to sell that. So like if you make arroz con algo, con siempre, and you put it in arroz con siempre, and you put it into a container for someone to then eat while they're walking around the feria, that's not allowed. So it needs to come already packaged and somebody walks away with it packaged. Okay, that's clear? Okay, I think I've covered everything. And Phyllis has her hand up.
Sí. Oops. How are you doing today? Okay, how are you?
Iguana. Well, I don't know her, but I'm game for contacting her and getting in to see how, you know, I'm pretty inviting to stuff. I'm in, get me that contact and I will be in touch with that person. So, thank you, everyone, lovely seeing you.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks for being with us. Okay, we need to wind things up here as everyone's, I'm sure, hungry for lunch and needs to be going. But before that, does everyone have a lottery or a raffle ticket? Everyone's got a raffle ticket?
Oh, I'm sorry, and that big, plastic.
Okay, so we're gonna raffle off today. We're gonna raffle off one of these bags, these beautiful bags that are made by the Costa Rican Humanitarian Foundation, which is what Gail Nystrom runs. And the women that she works with make this out of recycled materials. They're really beautiful. So whoever wins can choose the color that they like. And then they're also for sale for 10,000 colones to help the foundation. So those are here. Denise Bermudez brought a little succulent, so we're gonna raffle that off. We have some handmade soaps that are made with honey. And we're gonna raffle off a mug, a PWNCR mug. There, we have all of the merchandise up here for sale if anyone's interested. We have these amazing notebooks. Really cool pens. So. Okay. And did everybody send in their order for lunch? All set? Okay. Okay, so we'll raffle off the bag first. And the winning number is, should I choose it just to do this quickly? Is 379329. Nice, congratulations. Want to come up and choose one? And these are really nice. If you're really pretty, shines. Gail said they love this one, glows in the dark. Very cool. Take your choice. I believe you, you're good. Okay, the next winner is 379338. Anna, thank you. Anna. You win a little succulent. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Okay. This is the mug. Goes to 501987. Is it mine? No. Anyone know? 501987. Okay. 379334. See. Congratulations. Post yourself sipping coffee wine into the chat. Take a picture. Okay, the last one, these are the soaps. Goes to 379353. Congratulations. They're handmade, friend by me. Okay, well, I guess we're all finished today for today. Thank you all for coming. And we're gonna head down, I guess, for lunch. Is that all? Am I forgetting anything? Loredana? Sorry. Oh,
Hello, there are plenty of rolls in the table if you want to try them there for you to try. Please go ahead.